Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to a brand new series where we're going to be ranking every single North American NES game. I'm playing through them all, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of give my perspective on someone who's going to have beaten every single game we talk about. And this week I'm planning on doing just the number games that start with a numerical value before we move on to doing A, B, C, D, and a different letter every single month. So I hope that you enjoy that. I thought it'd be an interesting way to split it up. And at first I had thought of maybe just starting with the A's because it's about 30 games, so it kind of would have been a more, chunky video to begin things with. But you know what? I figure I've never actually ranked anything before, so maybe we'll start small, get some feedback on what people think, and we'll kind of grow from there. Because like B has over 60 games, and yeah, it gets bigger for a while. And then with E you get back to like 5 games. So it's going to be really fascinating. We're gonna have some months where we rank a lot of games, then some where it's not so big. But I hope you enjoy kind of just hearing my thoughts on all these different games. And it was kind of a question in my mind: how exactly should I tackle this? There's of course like that tier list website where you can go on, and someone had made like a pre-made NES game set that you can then just grab each of them and drag them to where you want. But it had some like oddities to it, where exactly the games were placed in the list, and it also had the European games thrown in there, which we're not going to be ranking in this series. And a big thing is that it did not include unlicensed games, which of course I've been playing through as well. So I figured the best way to do it would kind of just be to sit here, have a chat with you all, as I take the games off the shelf, actually show you what I'm talking about. And really, there's really only one way that I know how to rank things. In all the years of my video game experience and such, one way of ranking things has always stood out in my mind, and that is Sonic Adventure 2 style, baby! Let's go! I literally spent like the last week making it. Arts and crafts are officially more difficult than Battletoads. But yeah, so that's how we're going to be doing it. A through E, let's go. Sonic Adventure 2, one of my all-time favorite games. Back in the early 2000s, I beat Sonic Adventure Battle 2, Adventure 2 Battle 100%. That means all 180 emblems, all 155 rank A's. And then in the early 2010s, I did it again when it was released in HD. So I've beaten that game 100% twice now. So I'm kind of due for another playthrough of it, really. It seems kind of like an every 10-year sort of thing. I've always wanted to 100% it on the Dreamcast, where it was originally released. So perhaps I'll consider that in the future. But yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. No, high-tech, mubbly-boo kind of thing. We're gonna do it right here, right now, with the physical cartridges. And going forward, I'm gonna find a way to kind of like weight these in the back. These are like, fresh off the press. They were just glued with like my very own glue stick. Like an hour ago, getting them ready. It's incredibly genius idea to use toilet paper tubes to hold them up. But yeah, so this is what we're going to be doing here. I hope that you have fun with this series, because yeah, it's just gonna kind of be laid back, talking about the games I've beat. And just a note, I know there's like a thing where it's like, anything that doesn't get like 10 out of 10 is an awful game or something like that. 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I'm gonna say anything up to like C can still be quite a good game. And of course it's going to be, somewhat subjective in my rankings. It's, if 10-Yard Fights, like, one of the first games released for the NES, I could put it anywhere around here, but it's, to some people, it's like, well, that was like one of the first NES games released. It can't be better than a game that was released like 2-3 years after it, but we'll see. Of course, it's kind of also bank a lot on, how much fun I had with it, and as someone who's played through the whole thing, just the experience and how enjoyable it was will factor into exactly where it goes here, not just based on, a game with better graphics has to be the game with not as good graphics, or things of that nature. So I hope you enjoy this. And it's pretty primitive. I'm not the most, high-tech guy, as you can probably tell, so this is a fun way I thought we could maybe do it here. But again, your comments are always, encouraged in regards to how this video is laid out, of course, and also how, you agree or disagree with where I rank things. So with that said, I've picked it up like 5 times now. 10-Yard Fight, let's do this thing. Again, a black box game, so one of the first ones released for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's football, except it's in its much more basic form. You get some NES games, and they'll brag about, like, whoa, 200 different plays you can choose from. And, for someone who's, like, super into football, that's no doubt a huge selling point. But for someone like me, who understands football, is a casual observer of football, not too into, like, Major League or anything like that, but I understand the game and can appreciate it. I'm not someone who's particularly concerned with all the different plays and moves and things you can do. 10-yard fight is very simple. You got one team, on one end of the field, another team on the other, and you just have to try and get a touchdown on the other end. Within the number of downs that you're given, and every time you get 10 yards, of course, just like in football, you kind of get to reset that and get all your tries again. So it's in its purest form a football game, but without all of the like crazy plays and different things that you need to think about. And even on its most difficult difficulty, the Super Bowl difficulty, it's not that tough of a game, and I think it's great that anyone can just kind of pick it up and enjoy it right off the bat. So while someone who is really into football really wants kind of that micromanagement ability in there, they're not going to enjoy 10-yard fight as much as they might enjoy some of the other football games on the NES. But for me, someone who kind of just wants to have some fun, not think too much about exactly how I'm footballing, I'm going to give this one a B. Again, it's like one of the first NES games released, and it's like, how can that be a B? And then some of the other things you're going to give like a C and a D to. But it's true, and yeah, I definitely recommend checking out 10-Yard Fight. Unfortunately, it's not on Nintendo Switch Online. I've heard that there's some, licensing issues, I think, and such going on there. But if you ever have the chance, even if you're not into football, it can still be pretty fun. And next up is 1942. It's an earlier Capcom release, and it's based on the arcade game of the same name. Unfortunately, it's very primitive, and it's actually a case where probably having no music would have been better than having any music at all. Do I have to do the sample again where I let you all listen to the incredible soundtrack? Okay, let's do it. Here we go. Yeah, so what they were thinking when they let that fly, I have no idea, but 1942 is just so basic. It is just like the most basic shooter you could possibly have. You kind of just, sleepwalk through the whole thing. It never gets that difficult. It's just as plain in the first level as it is in the later levels. So, unfortunately, it is what it is. I beat it, but it's like I don't have any rush to go back and play this one again anytime soon. So it's going to be our introduction to the D category. And a big reason why I would never really want to go back and play it again is because you get 1943 on the NES, and it just blows its prequel out of the water so hard. This is such a fantastic game. 24 awesome stages. There's a password system now, so you know it's going to be a game that you need to play over multiple sittings. It's just so fun. It has everything that the first game didn't have. It has a stat system where you can find power-ups throughout that allow you to upgrade certain areas over others. So there's even like a strategic element in that regard. But the different settings that you fly over, the different enemies that you fight, and just the bosses, the different soundtrack. The soundtrack's fantastic, and the fact that you get a variety of different songs to listen to throughout the stages. It's just such a good game. I love 1943. It's one of my all-time favorite shoot-'em-ups, and definitely one of my favorite ones on the NES. And it even had an ending that I wasn't expecting. It kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, well, that makes me think about some things. So I totally recommend 1943. Really, really, really fun game. Awesome shoot-'em-up, and it definitely gets an A on the ranking there. But next up is 3D World Runner, and this one, it's a funny game. It's like, it's called 3D World Runner. If you press select, it actually activates the 3D mode so that you can, put your 3D glasses on and view it that way. But otherwise, it's a pretty fun game. One thing you need to know right off the bat is that there's these posts at the beginning and throughout all the stages. You're actually supposed to run into them and get power-ups to come out. I don't know how long I played the game for before I realized, oh, that's a thing that you can do. And I don't just mean in the setting that I beat it, but in all the years I've played 3D World Runner, it's like, you don't want to run into a post. Obviously that's a bad thing to do, but no, run into those. You'll get potions which give you an extra hit. You'll get rockets which allow you to shoot. Pick up everything but the mushrooms. The one thing you think would be good to pick up based on Nintendo games. You cannot touch the mushrooms. They kill you instantly. So avoid that. Otherwise, yeah, it's a fun enough game. You're just constantly running. This guy, he just cannot stop once he gets going. The same song plays throughout the entire game, so hopefully you enjoy it, because if not, you're probably not going to have... your ears will be broken by the end of all 8 worlds. Oh, and then once you get to the boss at the end of each world, it turns like Space Harrier style, and you kind of, it turns into like a shooter. And that'd be great, but you have to press the B button every time you shoot, and the bosses take a lot of hits, especially later into the game, so say bye to your thumbs. But it's a really fun game. I really enjoyed it. Not too much to complain about, other than that it gets quite difficult. And again, those posts that you run into to get items out of, by the end of the game, you're actually being forced to jump from one post to the other over gaps. These little tiny posts, you have to perfectly jump. It gets absolutely ridiculous. I really enjoyed it, really had a lot of fun with it. But where to put it? This is the first one where it's like, you know, B or C, right? Oh, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. Again, C games are not bad games. They're very, you know, they're still quite good games that I highly recommend playing. It's once you get into D, it's like you don't need to touch these games. But anything C and up, definitely I recommend checking out. So for this one, I think we're gonna give it a C, even though it's still quite good. And then you look at like 10-yard fight. It's like, does that deserve a B and that deserves a C? But that's the thing, right? How do you rank everything? Otherwise, we'd just be like ranking based on the year it came out or something like that. I had a lot of fun with 10-yard fight. And it's basic, but it's a lot of fun. 3D World Runner is also a lot of fun. But it's a weird game. And I don't know, maybe it deserves a B or maybe a C. We'll leave it in C for now. 720 Degrees is the next game we're looking at. This is also based on an arcade game, and it's about skateboarding around. You have to get money to, you know, enter different events and buy upgraded equipment. And it's very basic, but then once you don't have any more money, you have to kind of just skate around this main overworld portion of the map, but you run out of time to do that very quickly. And then these bees start coming after you, which attempt to kill you, and then they transform into like all sorts of weird shapes, like a syringe and stuff. It's a strange game, and overall, there's not much to it. It doesn't even have like an ending or anything like that. You kind of just, you know, skate around forever. I hear that the arcade version is much, much better, so if you ever have the chance to check that out, you know, at your local arcade or whatever, definitely do that. But in this regard, I don't think 720 is one I'm going to be going back to play anytime soon. And then that brings us to 8 Eyes, which I've also talked a little bit about on this channel, and it is very similar to Castlevania, except it kind of has more of a Mega Man twist to it, where you can select any level you want to start off the game, and then once you beat all 7 of those, you get to the 8th and final level. And the name comes from 8 Eyes. There are 8 crystals that you have to get, and there's actually a puzzle element to it as well. As you're playing through these 7 levels that, again, you can play in any order, there is a clue hidden in each one to how you have to order these 8 crystals in sort of like a puzzle screen at the end of the game. And if you don't figure out that by finding all of the clues, you can never truly beat the game. But otherwise, yes, it plays like Castlevania, except this guy is a falcon tamer. So he has a falcon that is on his shoulder, and when you press a certain button combo, it comes off, and you can then use that to attack enemies. It will fly back and forth across the screen, and then you can use it to attack enemies. So it's funny because there's some situations where you can just kind of find a safe spot during a boss fight and use the falcon to defeat the bosses. But speaking of the bosses, one really weird mechanic this game uses is that each time you beat a boss, you get a sword, and that sword will be good for defeating another boss, like they'll be weak against it. The problem is that once you get another sword, it overwrites the one you already had, so another boss is weak to that sword, but none of the other bosses are. So unfortunately, the effect doesn't compound. It's just always whatever sword you have is the one that's one certain boss will be weak against. Now, if you use the falcon or find another way to defeat a boss that isn't weak against the sword, you'll break the chain, so you could end up, you know, overwriting a sword that you needed to beat a really difficult boss, and then never be able to go back and get it again, and you kind of get soft locked in the way. But some of the bosses are really, really, really out of hand if you don't have the sword, which pretty much deals double damage. So I don't know why they created a system like that. It'd be like if every time you beat a boss in the Mega Man game, it overwrote the last special weapon that you got. So that's a huge flaw, and unfortunately kind of really hurts 8 Eyes, because you kind of just want to be able to play the levels in any order that you want and have fun with it, but instead they create this system that pretty much forces you to play the levels in a certain order. Otherwise, you make the game really, really, really difficult for yourself. And not knowing that the first time I played, I figured, okay, each time I get a sword, it's going to be doing more damage or something like that. But no, I got into a situation where I was down to like 3 bosses, and just none of them were taking heavy damage. They were all really tough, and they were all taking like no hit. They were all losing like no health from the hits I was dealing on them, and I had to get really creative again with the falcon to finally defeat one, which thankfully one of those swords was good for one of the other 2 bosses. But the fact that that system exists at all unfortunately hurts this game a bit, and it's good, but it's like it makes some weird decisions like that. So I think that for that reason, it also gets a C, and that's where we're at for the the numerical NES games. All 6 of them, count them right there. No E's yet, don't worry, we'll get to that in the future. But yeah, that's my Sonic Adventure 2 Battle NES ranking, and I hope that you enjoyed it. For the numbers, again, A is going to be a lot longer with about 30 games, and then B, I don't even know how I'm going to do that with like 60 games, and again, there'll be letters throughout, which are like higher and lower. But I hope you had fun with this. I had fun talking about those. Hopefully that made some sense. I'm sure there's something here you probably agree with, some things you disagree with. So I'd love to hear about that down in the comments below. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and hope you'll see me next month again when we tackle the rankings for the A games. So thanks, and see you later.